On the 10th of May 1940, Hitler began the long-anticipated invasion of Western Europe. The campaign produced a rapid and decisive victory that reshaped history, with consequences that would affect the future of many nations. The pivotal moment came on the 13th May, when the Meuse was crossed near Sedan by Guderian's Panzer Corps, alongside Rommel's division advancing toward Dinant. Initial breaches quickly widened into a major gap. German tanks surged through, reaching the Channel coast within a week, and effectively isolating Allied forces in Belgium. This development led directly to the collapse of France and left Britain cut off. Although Britain managed to endure behind the protection of the sea, doing so required a long and global struggle. The cost of the May 1940 collapse was enormous and still defies full measurement. The 7th Panzer Division, commanded by Rommel, was one of 4 light divisions that had been reorganized into panzer formations during the winter. It fielded only a single tank regiment rather than the usual 2, although that regiment was expanded to 3 battalions instead of 2, bringing its total to 218 tanks. More than half of these vehicles were of Czech manufacture. The composition of the 7th Panzer Division included Armor 25th Panzer Regiment, 3 tank battalions, 37th Panzer Reconnaissance Battalion, Motorized Infantry, 6th Rifle Regiment, 7th Rifle Regiment Motorcycle Battalion, Engineers, 58th Pioneer Battalion, Artillery, 78th Field Artillery Regiment, 3 battalions, each with 4-gun batteries, 42nd Anti-Tank Battalion. The reorganization had been carried out in response to lessons learned during the Polish campaign. It was there that Rommel, originally a devoted infantry officer, came to appreciate the potential of armored forces. Only on the 15th of February did he assume command of the 7th Division at Godesberg on the Rhine, yet he absorbed the new methods quickly and adapted with remarkable speed. Having always favored aggressive, forward-moving tactics in infantry operations, treating foot soldiers almost as mobile units, he now found those instincts amplified by the far greater mobility his new command provided. When the offensive began, opposition was minimal. The bulk of the Belgian army had been positioned to defend the Central Plains, where the main cities were located, while responsibility for the rugged and forested terrain of Belgian Luxembourg, east of the Meuse, was assigned to the Chasseurs Ardennais. Their task was not to hold indefinitely, but to delay the enemy as long as possible until French forces could advance to secure the flank along their frontier. This formed the basis of the Belgian defensive plan. The French strategy, however, took a more offensive approach. The 1st and 7th Armies, which included most of France's mechanized formations, advanced deeply into Belgium alongside the British Expeditionary Force. At the same time, the 9th Army, acting as the pivot of this movement, made a shorter advance to align itself along the Meuse between Mézières and Namur. This force consisted of 7 infantry divisions, only 1 motorized, and 2 cavalry divisions, the latter being primarily horse-mounted, but with some mechanized elements. The cavalry crossed the Meuse on the night of 10th of May and pushed into the Ardennes the following day, where they encountered rapidly advancing German panzer units that had already broken through much of the Belgian resistance. In the tense final hours before the attack, Rommel wrote a short letter to his wife before continuing his account. "Dearest Lou, we're packing up at last. Let's hope not in vain. You'll get all the news for the next few days from the papers. Don't worry yourself. Everything will go all right." Within the sector assigned to his division, the enemy had spent months preparing extensive obstacles. Roads and forest tracks were heavily barricaded, and large craters had been blasted into key routes. However, most of these obstructions were not strongly defended, and in only a few instances did they significantly delay the advance. Many could be bypassed by moving across open ground or along secondary routes, while in other cases, troops quickly set about clearing them, restoring passage without much delay. During their first encounter with French mechanized forces, immediate German fire forced a rapid French withdrawal. Experience repeatedly showed that in such engagements, success tended to favor the side that opened fire first and maintained pressure. Units that hesitated or waited for clearer information often found themselves at a disadvantage. Motorcycle troops leading the advance were instructed to keep their weapons ready and fire the moment enemy contact was suspected, even without precise target identification, directing fire broadly into likely enemy positions. From observation, this approach appeared to reduce casualties. Simply halting to seek cover without returning fire or waiting for reinforcements before engaging proved to be a flawed tactic. Early combat experience also demonstrated that, particularly in tank warfare, firing immediately into suspected enemy positions, rather than waiting for confirmation or suffering initial losses, often proved decisive. Even widespread machine gun and light anti-tank fire directed into wooded areas where enemy guns might be concealed could disrupt or neutralize opposition before it could effectively respond. In clashes with enemy tanks, frequently more heavily armored, opening fire at once consistently produced better results. Dearest Lou, I've come up for breath for the first time today and have a moment to write. Everything wonderful so far. Am way ahead of my neighbors. I'm completely hoarse from orders and shouting. Had a bare 3 hours sleep and an occasional meal. Otherwise, I'm absolutely fine. Make do with this, please. I'm too tired for more. Following the withdrawal of the French 1st and 4th Cavalry Divisions, Rommel's forward units reached the Meuse on the afternoon of 12th of May. He intended to seize the opportunity to cross immediately behind the retreating French and establish a bridgehead on the western bank. However, the bridges at Dinant and Hue had been destroyed just as the leading tanks approached, forcing him to organize an assault crossing using troops ferried across in rubber boats. The attack began early the next morning and, despite heavy losses, ultimately succeeded.